After they beat the Cowboys,
after they won. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's my thing. It's like, if they are taking it so far that they are worried about what a different team is saying while they're playing the Bears and oh, we're going to show you, we're going to gas Jalen's stats up in this game. I hope that's not true. I hope it's not true because it would say something really gross about the Eagles' mindset, just that they're so easily influenced by something so innocuous that they're designing a game plan around what a player that's not even on the team that they're playing said. That reeks like second grade playground energy, and I don't like it. So I'll say I don't believe that. I think it's more along the lines of the Bears have a bad defense. The Eagles thought they could take advantage of it through the air. That's fine. I don't think it needs to go further than that.
Also, they barely beat the Bears.
True.
Justin Fields was running all over the place. That was a close game. So it's not like he was making these mistakes after or going to this game plan and Chicago was not keeping up with them. So Jalen did have to run. He did have to use his legs. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had to use his legs. They had to win this game running the ball because he was throwing interceptions and making mistakes. I'm going to give Jalen and the Eagles organization a little bit of credit here. Now, I will say, I don't understand the male ego. I never have. I'm not going to try. I don't get abandoning reason to prove a point. But it has happened before and will happen again, so I can't completely eliminate the idea that this would happen, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not structuring their game plan to prove a point against Micah Parsons, who was busy taking an L to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't go that far. Now, had they played Dallas this weekend, I would tend to believe that was the case, because it was a little out of the ordinary. Statistically, it shows that. And it was going against the team that had their best player was talking in that way. So I don't think that it had anything to do with it. I think they're capable of shutting out that kind of noise at the level that they would change their game plan. And particularly, I think Jalen Hurts, just based off the way that he carries himself, but also the way that they're winning, while it would be really nice for Jalen Hurts to win the MVP, and I think he's the MVP this season, and if he finishes out the season playing in at least 2 of the last 3 games and they continue the trend that they're playing with, which would be winning, that he should win the MVP. I truly believe he's much more concerned about winning a Super Bowl and perhaps a Super Bowl MVP over a regular season MVP and proving a point to Micah Parsons.
Right. I would say, okay, right. The Eagles did well running the football.
Yep.
So perhaps sometimes a really good coach can overcoach or outcoach himself.
Correct.
Right?
Agreed.
So perhaps they were like, hey, let's go through the air because they're probably expecting to run. But also, what are the Eagles' playoff situation, right? They're all set right there.
They're good.
In,
just
running,
about.
I mean,
just pretty much,
about.
right?
It's 99% locked.
99%.
Yep.
So usually when you're pretty much guaranteed to be in the playoffs, perhaps you maybe open the playbook a little bit more. Let's try some different things. Let's start getting ready for the playoffs. So maybe he was like, hey, let's try to air it out just to see what else we can do. Maybe we can show more on film for other guys to prepare for. So that's just me thinking outside the box.
Here's what it reminded me of, Joy. We were both last week at the Sunday night game, Chargers versus Dolphins.
Right.
And when watching that game, Joy was watching it, I was watching it up close and personal, I was thinking to myself, Mike McDaniel, it looks like you're trying to prove Tua's better than Herbert. I'm just up here making TV. You're not supposed to let the TV I'm up here making influence your decisions. We all know that the Dolphins should have run the ball more against the Chargers.
For sure.
Because the Chargers have a terrible run defense, and the Dolphins have explosive running backs. A former Big Ten 60-meter champion is their leading running back. But McDaniel went out there just airing that thing out as if he was trying to prove something.
That's fair, because it was direct.
Fair.
Because it was direct. If they played the Cowboys, sure. When they played the Colts and he was like, that's for Frank, it was direct.
Dave, let me come to you on this question. Jalen Hurts, first 2-interception game. Dak Prescott had a 2-interception game yesterday. I believe he's had 4 of them all season. Jalen Hurts is usually without blemish. Yesterday, he was not. What did the performance tell you?
Not a whole lot. And I mean, I hate the idea that you're just going to radically change your opinion of a player off of one game. This is the first time we've seen Jalen make mistakes like this all season long. I think he'd thrown 3. So
season.
He almost matched his total with 1. And he didn't even play that bad of a game. He threw for 300. He ran for 3. If that's your worst game of the year, you're probably in the MVP conversation. It really doesn't change my opinion other than to say, and it just reinforces what I thought about him, which is I think he's a very resilient guy. He comes across as a very mentally strong guy. Those picks came early.
Yep.
They were sputtering throughout the first half, which has not been the Eagles' way. In the vast majority of their games, they're already thinking about, where they're partying afterward at halftime. It wasn't the case yesterday, and he got better as the game went along. He cut out the mistakes. When it really mattered, when they had a chance to put the game away, he went 3 out of 3 for 72 yards to get them downfield, had a rushing touchdown. I just think he's a very resilient guy, and he showed it.
I think Gardner Minshew could probably do that.
We might find out on
find out.
Saturday.
Hey, when you said, like, when it mattered, right?
Yeah.
What did my notes say right there?
Hurts played well when it matters.
That's it. That's my notes right there. Exactly.
There we go.
My guy.
Well, I just think that what the Eagles showed overall is that nobody can impose their will on them. If they're going to be in a competitive game with you, it's because they're making mistakes.
The Bears weren't. I know that. Yeah.
What happened?
So the Bears weren't going to impose their will.
No, but they took advantage of the mistakes that they made, and that's my point. That's what happened in the game that they lost to the Commanders. It's what happened against the Colts, and now it's what happened against the Bears. So if you're going to go against the Eagles, you should start praying that they make some mistakes, because it seems to be the only way that you're really going to be in a tough, close, competitive game with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's how it's gone all season long. And to both of your points, you can struggle early in a game if you can overcome it. So you obviously don't want this, but this is the most uncharacteristic for Jalen out of anyone else in the league. He was number 1 in the interception category, meaning he had the fewest of all quarterbacks in the league going into this game. So this is, talk about Dak being uncharacteristic. This is not what Jalen does. And then he has the ability to overcome it with his legs, which was what he did. Jalen is very capable, and I think they're going to be fine. Now it's going to be the question of, is he going to be healthy next week?
Where you stand? Jalen Hurts' performance, what'd you learn?
Yeah, exactly what my note said. He plays well when it mattered. Yeah, he came out the game, and he was like, hey, let me try some things. They didn't work out. All right, let me get back to, like, what we do. Let me use my legs. Let me give it to A.J. Brown. Let me get Devontae Smith, and let's play football. So for me, again, it continued to show and prove like he is super resilient when it matters.
I believe it's a thing they tell defensive backs. I didn't hear it a ton as a linebacker, but I heard it all the time when walking through a DB room, sitting in a DB meeting. Never let one play beat you twice.
Right.
Never let one play beat you twice. What I learned about Jalen Hurts yesterday is he's capable of making mistakes, but he won't let a mistake beat him twice. Like Dave alluded to early on in the game, Joy alluded to it early on in the game, he threw a pick. The pick was really out of the ordinary for Jalen Hurts. He does not get flustered. The Eagles were trying to hurry up, and out of nowhere he throws an interception. But late in the game, 5 minutes left, 3rd and 6, gotta have it. He threw his best ball of the day to A.J. Brown. Eagles once again win. Jalen Hurts, resiliency out of this world, like the Eagles record.
Overall, just like morale. So I feel like with this, they just happened to run into a madman named Josh Allen. I think that was the thing. They went up to Buffalo. Shout out to them for performing in the cold. Shout out to them for doing everything they were supposed to do, run the ball, get explosive plays, but it was just Josh Allen's time. But for them, for Miami, I'm not concerned. I'm not worried about them. I think they take care of business the rest of the way.
I'm concerned because I'm actually with Joy on the side of I don't care for moral victories anymore. Now, Miami played a winnable game, but they lost.
Right.
What happens if they play a losable game against the Jets or Packers or Patriots and lose? Like, I would have rather them won and played ugly than lose and play great.
No question about it.
I love your take as it pertains to the Detroit Lions. That's incredibly accurate. The Detroit Lions have held on to hope for the last year and a half because they have shown fight and shown promise. But what might happen to Detroit might happen to Miami. They might run out of time.
Joy made a good point. She said, what depends on what your expectations were. I did not have them as Super Bowl favorites or going deep into the playoffs or even the playoffs. I think this year was more so like, what can Tua do? Like, what does it look like for Tua? And we found out, like, yes, he is their guy with the right coach.
But after 5 weeks, Dave, when the Dolphins had beat the Ravens, they had beat the Bills, they had beaten one more team that's pretty good, if I'm not mistaken, it's slipping my mind right now. We had all realized, like, wait a second, the Dolphins might actually be AFC favorites. They might be the top of the AFC right there with the Chiefs. They already beat the Bills. They beat the Ravens. They were playing well against the Bengals before Tua got carted off. And now it looks like they only have a 61% chance of making the playoffs. Are they in trouble?
No, and I line more with Will just because, for a variety of reasons. Okay, I get it. Moral victory, all that cool stuff. And yes, you would rather win. You would take a 3-0 win where you played terribly in every facet of the game, but we're better than them, like, because winning is that important. But I think this is different because the Dolphins just got back to the reasons we're talking about them in the first place. Tua rediscovered his timing and his mojo. They got the explosive plays. They ran the ball. The defense, considering you're going against Josh Allen when he's clicking, I thought the defense played fairly well. I know that sounds silly about a game where they gave up 32, but that's the world you're living in when you're playing Josh Allen. They looked good, and I think that's important because I'll be honest, I was losing faith that they could sustain that. They looked like a husk of a team against the Chargers, and that's not even a great Chargers team. That's what was so concerning about it, is you're like, I mean, you don't even have to win this game, but like, can you 9 completions to it? Like, what are we doing here? Like, they just didn't even look like a semblance of what we had gotten used to. And on the other side of that, there's merit to what Joy's saying, that this team looked like a contender. They still, unfortunately, have the bad luck of sharing a division with the AFC favorite. And the Bills never really went away, right? Like, it was like, we're like, oh my God, Josh is throwing picks, and they lost a couple games, but they never really went away. They're number 1 in the AFC. They're probably going to have the bye. So is that the Dolphins' fault? I mean, I think it's just bad luck of what division you play in.
I mean, but that's been the story with the Dolphins forever. First it was Tom Brady, now it's Josh Allen. Like, if you're really taking a step up, if you're really a contender, you have to beat them. Like, I understood you did it earlier in the season, but you had an opportunity to beat them. Beat them. Go score points on that drive. Make it harder on Josh Allen. Like, that's the next step. It can't always be there's a great player in your division. There will likely always be a great player in your division.
Okay, but to go back to Will's point, like, the next step for the Dolphins is getting to the playoffs. And I think they're going to. If they play like they played in Buffalo, they're going to win at least 2, if not all 3 of their games. They got Packers, Jets, Patriots.
Those teams are competing to make it into the playoffs. Their seasons aren't dead.
If the Dolphins play like they played against the Bills, they should win those games. Like, the Patriots, we talk about the Patriots all the time. Like, they are relevant in record only. Like, nothing about that team should scare a team that can do what the Dolphins can do. The Jets have a nice defense.
Tua is 4-0 versus Bill Belichick.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Of
but
course.
These are divisional matchups
Sure.
that we all know can go either way, right?
Yeah.
And they're all playing for something. It's not like these teams are mailing it in. My question with the Dolphins, again, comes back down to expectations. You must make the playoffs this year.
They need to.
It is inexcusable not to make the playoffs this year. This is not a moral year. This is not a growth year. This is not a rebuilding year. You did everything you could possibly do to shore up this team, and you fired a coach that had back-to-back winning seasons. Whatever you think of Brian Flores, those facts remain in place. Tua is obviously better this year, but what was all that for if you missed the playoffs?
Okay.
So that's why it's nice that they played a competitive game against the Bills. I, for one, am not surprised because I was the only one who said that they could do it.
True.
But you still lost. So there's no little asterisk at the end that was like, but they were there in the end.
Don't you feel better about them making the playoffs today than you did after the Chargers game? Oh boy, here we go.
This has been my life.
Now, let me ask you before we head out, though, Joy, are the Dolphins not a prisoner of their own success? Why do I say that? Think about the 10 first-year head coaches that are in this season right now. Dennis Allen and the Saints. Doesn't look like they're making the playoffs. Brian Daboll, they're still trying to fight and hold on for dear life. Matt Eberflus and the Bears, they're not making the playoffs. You got the Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. Don't look like they're making the playoffs. You got whatever the heck is going on with the Colts and Jeff Saturday. You got Doug Peterson, doesn't look like he's making the playoffs. You got Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings. They're making the playoffs. Mike McDaniel, they should make the playoffs. Like, are the Dolphins not a prisoner of their own success? Because all the other first-year head coaches, Nathaniel Hackett, they're kind of struggling. So the Dolphins are ahead of the curve, are they not?
Sure. Moral victories again. You have to make the playoffs. I still think they will. But you asked me if they're in trouble, if I was concerned. First of all, they are in trouble. It's in their hands now. They have there's nothing that's been solved. Like, they're not in the clear. Like, they must win these games. Must. No room for error. You don't have that anymore. There was a point in this season where you were the top dog, so now you have to go out and do that. You have to.
I still think it's growth. I think this is a growth season. If they make the playoffs, cool. If they don't, I'm not panicking at all.
It's inexcusable not to make the playoffs.
It would hurt to not make it.
It would hurt if they didn't, but the fact, again,
Mike McDaniel's not getting fired. Tua is still the franchise quarterback, but it is inexcusable this year with all the talent that they had, the opportunities that they had, the record that they had.
You know what's messing it up is
like
that what's messing it up is that the Jets are playing good football. That's what's messing it up.
10-6 2 years ago, 9-8 last year, if I'm not mistaken, and they missed the playoffs both of those years. It would be tough for the Dolphins to have another winning season and not make the playoffs. That's never happened in the history of the NFL, 3 consecutive winning seasons without a playoff appearance, and it won't happen to the Dolphins because they will make it. Coming up, Joe Burrow has a lot of reasons to smile. They beat the Bucs and Tom Brady yesterday. They've now won 6 straight games. But are they the best team in the AFC? I think so. That's next. B.
Don't sleep on Jacksonville, Acho. Nick Sirianni does kind of like, he likes the trash talk